Hey, Joe, what do you got for us tonight?
Well, tonight is part one of a two-part series on one of the most infamous cases in all of true crime, the Clutter family murders. Herb Clutter was a successful and well-known Kansas farmer who, along with his wife and two children, were murdered in their home in the winter of 1959. After 45 days on the run, both of their killers were captured, sentenced, and hanged for their crimes. During the investigation, a writer named Truman Capote would become involved in the case and soon write one of the most famous books in true crime history, In Cold Blood.
Quiet your mind. Ever since the Earth has circled the sun, there have been fantastic tales of wonder and mystery that the faint of heart dare not discuss. But three brave, uninformed souls have the brass to tackle every extraordinary happenstance, from the modern age to the dawn of Mantis.
Welcome back to Dawn of Mantis, true crime, mysteries, and more. I'm Ivan with Joe and Sam. How are you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing good.
Wonderful. Thank you for asking.
This is one I kind of know some stuff about. I'd seen the movie, but it's been a long time ago, the In Cold Blood movie. Well, no, it was actually Capote, the movie that I've seen.
Philip Seymour Hoffman?
Yeah. Obviously, anything with him is fantastic.
Yeah.
But you know what? Oddly enough, I don't remember a lot about the case. I kind of remember the stuff about his personal life, but I mean, it wasn't really about the case. It was more about him, I guess. So,
Yeah.
So I'm interested to just really talk about the case.
Yeah, we're going to do, and at the end of it, I'll kind of get into it more, but we are going to focus on the case. I'm not really even going to mention Capote until the end.
Sure.
That's a facet of the case that I just kind of left out. He did interject himself into the investigation pretty soon after.
Yeah, I do remember some stuff about that.
Even before the killers were caught and all that. We'll cover that and kind of tie that up with a bow at the very end. But yeah, throughout the episode, we're mainly just going to focus on the murders and the investigation and the pursuit of the killers and the capture. Yeah.
But a two-parter. That's pretty cool.
Two-parter. We haven't done a multi-parter in a little bit, maybe ever since Jim Jones.
Oh, yeah.
I needed a break after that.
Yeah, I needed a break after that series, too. You know, those are taxing.
14 parts is taxing.
Especially for you that you had to write it, but it's just a lot. But it's awesome that we do those. It's cool that we do like the big multi-parters, and then we wait a while and we do one again. So anyway, if you got any other big multi-parters on the horizon, just while we're talking about
we were talking about it before we started, and we're going to get to the Clutter family murders in just a second. But I do want to say, somewhere on the horizon, we want to do a major Tom Petty series.
Oh, yeah. Tom Petty.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got some more announcements cooking up with that thing. We'll talk about that later.
For sure. Yeah, but that's a daunting one. You know, I think that may be on par with Buddy Holly. You know, Tom Petty had a really long, illustrious career.
Sure.
So that's going to be no small task.
He rubbed elbows with a lot of people, and just listening to his XM show, just seemed like one of the nicest guys. And that's what I've heard other people say, too, in the profession.
Yeah.
About little interviews, especially after he died and stuff like that. So,
yep.
All right, you ready to get into this one?
Let's
Sam,
get into
got
it.
Anything?
I'm good.
Sam's busy over there. I'm going to tell you guys right now, Sam looks like he is like at the helm of like when one of the space shuttles went to the moon.
I was
back in
gonna
the
say-
60s. He's like
The transporter room in Star Trek,
Yeah.
whenever, you know those episodes where it's like they can't get them back and they're kind of like fading in and
Yeah.
out and they're moving a bunch of dials and knobs and stuff.
Yep.
And you're like, are they going to get them, or is this it for Kirk and Spock and the landing team? We already lost the red shirt guy a long time ago, so he's not
Cares
coming
about
back.
him.
Yeah.
That's what Sam looks like right now. He is at the helm of like the YouTube live and everything going on.
Yeah.
It also reminds me, of course, because this is one of my favorite movies of all time, Spaceballs,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
where Mel Brooks, where he gets beamed and his head is on backwards.
Oh.
Why didn't anyone tell me my ass was so big? Anyway, yeah. Very,
Fantastic.
very funny. And by the way, yes, as we've mentioned before, they are currently in production of making a Spaceballs 2. I could not be more excited.
That's awesome. Yeah, for sure.
Has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but we're going to get to that.
Yeah. We talk about what we want. But yeah, let's get into the case.
All right.
Let's do it. The people of justice here.
The Clutters were quite literally the quintessential American family in 1959. They were a well-known and well-respected farm family who owned over 640 acres near the tiny settlement of Holcomb, Kansas. Now, Holcomb, and it's really Holcomb. I kind of overpronounced it. Anyone from there would be upset with me for that. Holcomb, all right?
Sure.
Holcomb was an unincorporated community consisting of about 200 people, just 6 miles east of Garden City, which boasted 13,000 people.
Okay.
So that's a thriving metropolis by comparison.
That's where they went to town.
For sure, yeah.
Everyone has, we're going to town. Everyone has that.
Yeah, sometimes that town is 1,100 people. Sometimes it's like 500,000. I don't know.
Yeah.
Now, they were one of, if not most, the well-off, prosperous farm families in the region. And it was mostly thanks to the knowledge and determination of the patriarch of the family, Herb.
Okay.
Herbert Clutter was his name. Farming was his game.
All right.
Okay?
All right.
I can't help it. I'm sorry. Herbert Clutter was 48 years old at that time and had a tall, slender frame, but round, red skeleton-type face framed by brow-rimmed glasses. It's kind of a specific comparison, but anyone our age or older would, Red Skelton kind of had that round, inviting, kind of warm face, with the dimples.
Oh, yeah.
That was kind of Herb Clutter.
Yeah.
It's hard to describe his personality without sounding terribly cliche, but it really does seem true that old Herb was kind, wonderful. He was just a salt-of-the-earth kind of guy who oozed integrity, right? Couldn't find a negative word about him.
Yeah.
In nearly every photograph of him I found, he's flashing a wide, toothy grin, all right? And I hate to say this, but the guy maybe actually lit up a room.
Okay. I mean, some people really do. I mean, if you think about it.
It's the most cliche thing you can say in true crime is that one of the deceased lit up a room. But by God, I think Herb did.
I just hope there's no one that's like, man, that guy always dimmed a room. Hope it's not me.
I've known people like that.
As soon as he walked in, all the lights would almost go out.
We called him 40 watt. Right? Every time he walked in, just...
That's pretty good for LED, but back in the incandescent days, that wasn't a very bright light.
Not at all.
It's like a 5-watt LED is pretty awesome now.
Okay. Well, we call them 40 watt glass bulb filament. The old school.
40-watt tungsten.
Well, aside from the many hours he devoted to his farm and family, Herb was active in the Garden City Co-op as well as the local Methodist Church. Everyone in Holcomb and nearby Garden City knew and liked Herb. He was also well known for his progressive farming methods and involvement in agricultural organizations, not just in Kansas, but in apparently the entire country. In 1953, President Dwight D. Eisenhower appointed Herb Clutter to the Federal Farm Credit Board. In this role, Herb helped set lending policies for federal banks, production credit associations, and banks for cooperatives, all of which provided long-term and short-term credit to farmers. He worked on ensuring that farmers had fair access to credit at reasonable interest rates, especially during the times of market instability or drought. He participated in advisory and oversight functions, reviewing loan regulations, budgets, and the financial health of the farm credit system. The following is an interview with Herb conducted after his appointment to the board.
This is Herb Clutter's combine. It reaps, threshes, and pours a stream of golden wheat out the spout. Herb Clutter explained.
This is only a part of the machinery needed to operate an ordinary-sized farm, and in order to make these farms economical, you certainly have to have a farm big enough in order to use this machinery efficiently and pay for the investment that you have.
The matriarch of the family was Bonnie. She was Bonnie Fox until she and Herb were married in 1934. Her proper hairstyles and conservative way of dress often made her appear older than her age, which was just 45, which is my age, and that's not old.
It's because you're 45.
I know, right? However, in the rare photos when she is not made up with fancy hats, frills, and a poodle-cut hair, she looked remarkably young for a woman in her mid-40s with 4 kids. There's evidence that Bonnie suffered from depression and even sporadically experienced bouts of depression severe enough that she would avoid leaving the house. In Truman Capote's book, he described Bonnie as incapacitated by her illness, nearly an invalid who could barely often function. It is likely that these claims were exaggerated for dramatic effect because, according to those who knew her, she remained active within her community, her church, and her family. And by the way, Capote's book, and I'll talk about it at the very end of the episode, it was a novel, but it was one of the earliest examples, if not the first, I'm not sure, someone will correct me, he blended the true story of the Clutter family murders with fiction. It's like a true crime novel, right?
Novelization.
Yeah. He basically blended in and he elaborated, he exaggerated on things. He wrote it as a novel. So it shouldn't be taken really as an exact timeline of everything and all the details, but it is a fantastic book.
Is it admitted that he's doing that? Is that in the... Okay.
Yeah,
it's
it's called like a true crime nonfiction novel. It's kind of a blended, it was kind of one of the first of the genre.
Yeah.
That's kind of what made it so famous.
Well, it's kind of like based on a true story.
Yeah.
I mean, that's most things you ever see.
Yeah, true. Finally, there were the Clutter children. The eldest was Eviana. Pretty sure that's how it was pronounced. She was 23 at the time, so she was married and moved off. She lived in Illinois.
Okay.
Second eldest was Beverly, who was 21 and attending nursing school and living in Kansas City, so she was gone. She also was engaged to get married during Christmas break of 1959, which was coming up because we're going to be in November. That left 16-year-old Nancy and the only boy, 15-year-old Kenyon, who were still living at home. They attended nearby Holcomb High School, and much like their father, they were active in several social clubs and activities like drama, club, and 4-H. Nancy even taught Sunday school class at the church they attended.
Cool.
While Kenyon was quieter and a little reserved and a bit of a jokester still, Nancy was bubbly and outgoing and, according to her friends, a little boy crazy, which is typical for a 16-year-old girl, even back in the 50s. And she had recently agreed to go steady with a classmate named Bobby Rupp. I only mention that because that will come up later.
Okay.
Now, the Clutters' home, which they'd built in 1948, had become a focal point of Holcomb society and Garden City. It was a beautiful two-story house designed by Herb and Bonnie themselves that had more than 3,200 square feet of living space, including 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, and a full basement. Now, that basement became the location for countless parties, 4-H events, church functions, and social events. Bonnie was a born hostess and loved organizing and managing the events there.
Does the house still exist?
It still exists. I looked it up on Zillow. It sold several years ago. That's how I know the square footage and the bedroom. Yeah.
I knew you'd know that. That's why I decided to ask.
It was on Zillow. It's not currently for sale, but the last time it sold, it only sold for like $212,000 or something. And it's 10 acres and this big, beautiful house and a separate like living quarters.
Wow.
Pretty cheap, maybe because it's in the middle of nowhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's the Clutter family. Now, as I said, they were about as genuine, down-home, apple pie American folks as you could possibly imagine, which is precisely why the horrific fate that was about to befall them seems all the more tragic and senseless. But before we get into that, let's get to know the other players in this story, okay?
Okay.
There's the two fellas that were, guilty, convicted, hung of murdering the Clutters. Let's get to know them really quick.
Okay.
Everybody bring up Perry Edward Smith. Dun, dun, da, da, doo, doo, dun, dun, da, da. That's what it sounds like.
Come on down.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was born on October 27th, 1928. So his dad was Irish, known as Tex, and his mother, Florence Buckskin, was a Native American. When Perry was born, his parents had both been well-known performers in a rodeo sideshow, but his father suffered an injury and could no longer perform when he was like 2 years old. Not the dad, but when Perry was 2 years old.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's performing before he's age 2.
He was 2 years old in a rodeo performer.
Golly, what a phenom.
I'd pay money to see a 2-year-old do rodeo tricks.
Before then, he's like 18-month-old. Wow. No, good clarification. Very
Thank
good.
you. Yeah, I noticed I didn't write that quite, No,
correctly. I mean, I understood, but it's funny that you clarified.
Well, following that, Tex, Flo, Perry, and his 3 siblings, which were Tex Jr., Dorothy, and Fern, they moved to Juneau, Alaska.
Okay.
Now there, Tex, he wasn't doing the rodeo thing anymore, so he started making illegal hooch, moonshine.
Okay.
And unfortunately, he drank a lot of his product as well. He became a raging alcoholic.
Well, they always say don't trust a skinny cook. So that means he's got to try and make sure, right? Just trying to defend. I don't know why I'm defending alcoholism.
He had to drink it.
I'm wrong.
You got to taste your product.
I'll take that back.
Tony Montana said, you don't get high on your own supply, right? Actually, it was his boss that said that.
Yeah.
Anyway, you know what I'm talking about.
Another obvious reference we missed is, I'm not quite sure where Tex was from.
Yeah. That's man, we always go to Forrest Gump.
Oh, we have to. It's classic.
So yeah, while some people get happy when they're drunk, jovial, kind of like yours truly, just want to hug people and, just hang out. Some people, others, they get sad or angry or violent when they're drunk, right?
I've heard of this before.
I've heard of that phenomenon
Yes.
before. But yeah, Tex both verbally and physically abused his wife and his kids, unfortunately. In 1935, when Perry was 7, Tex delivered quite a beating to his wife. This time, though, she reported him and he was thrown in jail. You go, girl.
Nice.
Girl power, right?
Right.
So while Tex is locked up, Flo took the opportunity to grab her kids and she fled Alaska for... If you're going to San Francisco...
So Flo fled.
Be sure to wear a flower in your hair.
Way before that movement, but you're right. I mean,
You're right.
It's irrelevant.
I don't think she went to like Haight-Ashbury or anything, but she did go to San Fran. Yeah.
Yeah?
She started taking acid. She didn't though, but she did. I want to say right after they got to San Fran, and I think it started in Juneau, she also became a raging alcoholic.
Oh, man.
So these kids just couldn't catch a break, man.
Trauma's ultimate gateway.
So for the next 6 years, Perry and his siblings had full run of San Francisco while their mom spent most of her days in a drunken stupor.
Oh, man.
Perry fell in with some wrong kids and began committing petty crimes all over the city. Then in 1941, Flo died of alcohol poisoning. So Perry was 13 years old. I'm setting this up. I'm not trying to excuse anything, but I'm just showing you, man, this kid did not have the ideal life.
Yeah. I mean, I get exactly what you're doing.
Following his mother's death, Perry and his siblings were sent to an orphanage. Perry was a chronic bedwetter, and aside from being humiliated by the other kids, he was also beaten for it, he claimed, by the superiors there at the orphanage. And if it was like a nun, if it was like a, what do you call it, a convent, he probably was.
I mean, it's very possible.
Very possible.
Yeah, that's going to fix it. Had trauma that started that, and you're going to make more trauma.
Have you just beat it out of him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I promise not to misbehave while I'm asleep. Come on.
That's another, it's one of the 4 or 5.
Oh, I know where you're going.
Yeah,
Go.
the
Go there.
FBI list of serial killer characteristics as they're young. What is it? It's animal torture, fire starting, bedwetting, and there's like 1 or 2 more.
Those are the main ones.
Yeah, those are the main 3.
Just listen to John Douglas. He always brings those up.
Yes, John Douglas was who I got that from. Yeah. He experienced so much violence and had suffered so much instability by that point that he'd been tremendously affected psychologically. He had an incredibly short temper and was prone to violent outbursts. Hardly a day passed when Perry didn't get into a fight or have to be detained away from the other children after some violent altercation.
Yeah.
In 1944, he joined the Merchant Marines. Now, I had to look this up. I don't know if you guys know what the Merchant Marines are.
I don't know much about them.
Okay, but I didn't know. I was like, is that like a separate branch of the Marines? I didn't know. So I looked it up. For those who don't know, the Merchant Marines are not part of the U.S. military at all. They're civilians who operate commercial ships that carry cargo and passengers. However, in conflicts like World War II, Merchant Marines did transport troops, weapons, fuel, and supplies across dangerous waters and often sailed in convoys protected by the U.S. Navy, so they kind of work in tandem. Although they are not part of the military in wartime, their service is considered vital. So following a short stint with the Merchant Marines, Perry joined the Army and served in the Korean War for 15 months. He was said to be a good sailor, but also prone to drinking and fighting. Okay? You can look up pictures. There's pictures of him in the military. Good-looking guy, like happy-looking dude, always big smile on his face. I saw interviews with people that had served with him that vouched for him. One of the people that served with him, and we'll get into it later, but they ended up at his trial as a character witness to defend him. They just said Perry was always just a jovial dude, real happy, smile on his face. He was I think he was some kind of equipment operator in the military, and he apparently did a good job at that.
Yeah.
But anyway, even if you are all those things and you go on to murder a couple of people, don't really matter. So
yeah.
That's my thing.
What have you done for me lately?
Right.
Oh, you killed somebody.
Right.
Oh, that's not good.
Oh, he was a good guy 11 years ago, but then he killed 2 people. So I don't really give a shit how nice he was in the military. I don't care how good he was at operating equipment. He killed 2 people later.
Yeah.
So poo-poo, go. I don't understand that. Anyway.
I mean, all things considered, maybe. I'm not trying to be NPR, but it's just like paint the whole picture of the guy and then give him the sentence, which we all know what happened, but
Yeah. We should do the next segment like NPR. Welcome to All Things Considered.
I'll go to sleep.
Yeah. As we said, at age 24 in 1952, Perry left the Army and moved to Tacoma, Washington. I can't do it. There, I got to put personality into it. I can't read it like that. There, he got a job as a car painter, and from what I can tell, he lived a fairly normal life for a little bit. He got his own place and bought a motorcycle that he liked to ride through the dense forest in Washington state.
I bet that was pretty.
Yeah, man. Then Perry crashed that motorcycle and he suffered severe injuries to his leg, hip, and arm. From what I read, it basically shattered his left leg. Shattered it. In fact, he was in the hospital for about the next year recuperating. After he was finally all healed up, Perry began living a nomadic life, drifting all over the country. To support himself, he engaged in petty crimes, mostly robberies, and it didn't take long for Johnny Law to catch up.
Yeah.
In July of 1955, Perry was caught breaking into the Chandler Sales Company Sales Pavilion building in Phillipsburg, Kansas. He was arrested and booked into the Phillips County Jail, but escaped a few days later. Perry was eventually recaptured and on March 13th, 1956, was sentenced to serve 5 to 10 years at the Kansas State Penitentiary. That's you're doing hard time.
Sounds like it.
And that was in Lansing, Kansas. Now, this is where he would meet the second player in our story, Dick Hickok.
Okay.
Let's make fun of that name. We're not going to?
Mm-mm.
Can you imagine both your first and last names have
that's
a
not good.
slang term for wiener in it?
That's bad luck.
It's like, my name is Wiener Gooberton. Or it's like, what an unfortunate name.
He should have went by Richard.
My name is Schlong Peckerson. It's just about that. I'm sorry, Sam. Oh, God.
It's
All right.
just bad luck.
Richard, I would change my name. You could go by Richard.
You could.
His name was literally Richard. Go by Richard. It's like that NASCAR driver, Dick Trickle.
Yeah, well.
I would have been Richard Trickle. I would have been Richie Trickle. I guarantee you. Why did he do that?
Yeah, well, you remembered his name.
Well, that's true.
I mean, that's like one of 3 NASCAR people I know their name.
Him and Dale Earnhardt.
Yeah.
And who's the other one? Richard Petty?
Well, yeah, but
Okay.
if you go back to Legends,
Okay.
Jeff Gordon,
Okay.
of course, he's kind of the hated one.
Old Dick Trickle.
Yeah.
So Richard Dick Hickok was born on June 6th, 1931 in Kansas City, Kansas. Unlike Perry, Dick had a good childhood with loving parents, but they were also stern. Their names were Walter and Eunice Hickok. He did well in school and was popular among both students and faculty and did not exhibit many behavioral issues. After high school, he wanted to pursue a college education, but the family could not afford it, so instead he went to work with his father in an auto shop. The family lived in the tiny town of Edgerton, just a few miles from Olathe, Kansas. It's spelled O-L-A-T-H-E.
I've heard of it. I don't know why, but I've heard of it.
I have too. I've probably been through. I used to live in Kansas. I've been all over there. But it's Olathe. The whole area is basically an outward-lying suburb of Kansas City and nearly 400 miles from the Clutter family on the opposite side of the state. But then, in the summer of 1950, everything changed for Dick Hickok. Part of the then 19-year-old's job at the shop was running out to grab parts. And it was while on one of these parts runs that Dick had a terrible car wreck. He hydroplaned on some water on the highway. The car rolled several times, and he was ejected in the process and suffered pretty severe head and brain injuries. The left side of his face was crushed, his nose wound up crooked, and his left eye would remain misshapen for the rest of his life. If you have yet Googled Dick Hickok's picture while listening to this, or if you do later, you will immediately see that left eye is, I don't know, it's like half as big as the other one. It's squinty. The dude got pretty messed up.
Kind of like Popeye a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, but not even on purpose. Look, It was that way kind of permanently. See?
Oh, okay.
You can tell the left side of his face is, look, it's been jacked. His nose is a little crooked. You know, he had a
It's not
pretty...
as bad as I thought it would be, though.
No. I mean, he pulls it off, right? He pulls it off with that 50s hair slick back, right?
Yeah. That's a good photo of him for that time.
It is. And wait till we see the Perry Smith photos. They're both really good photos.
Oh, that's probably after he's arrested, right?
Yeah.
That's why it's a good photo.
During one of his arrests. But the worst of the damage manifested after Dick's physical recovery. The once mild-mannered, laid-back guy slowly morphed into an impatient, short-tempered, hothead that his friends and family no longer recognized.
Something's wrong with his medulla oblongata.
Shut your mouth, Colonel Sanders. We've mentioned this in several other episodes, like severe brain injuries, especially to the frontal lobe, where it completely changes people's personalities. We've mentioned it before, but supposedly Sam Kinison,
I've heard that about him too.
He used to be a preacher.
Yeah.
And then he got into this severe car wreck, or maybe he got hit by a car or something, and he had some brain damage, and as legend has it, who knows?
Yeah.
But it was after that where he was just he was the Sam Kinison that we all know,
Yeah.
Pretty wild stuff.
Yeah.
So after the accident, Dick was also left with a ton of unpaid medical bills and mounting debt. He had a girlfriend named Carol whom he got pregnant and married in July of 1951, and the couple would soon have 2 kids together. Over the next few years, he worked several random jobs. He worked on the railroad, he worked as a mechanic, and even drove an ambulance for a little bit. He also began to have an affair with a woman he'd met at work named Margaret. Bless his heart, old Dick, he was weak. Anytime he was tested by the opposite sex, he crumbled like a deck of cards, man.
A lot of people on these days too, I guess. So maybe I don't want to finish that thought.
That's just a chronic problem that's always existed and it always will.
That's right.
So he began to have an affair with this gal, and his first wife would later say, I know he loved me, but he also loved any other woman he could. So that, that's a big cross to bear. So.
Yeah, man, we could say a lot about that quote, but we'll just leave it there. Feel bad for her.
Let's leave that cooking.
Yeah.
He soon got his side chick pregnant and decided to divorce his first wife to marry Margaret. They would end up having 2 kids together, but would eventually get divorced.
No.
I don't know if he had 2 kids with both of them. I might have messed up there. I don't know if it really matters. I think he ended up having 2 or 3 kids. He may have just had the 1 kid with the side chick that he eventually married. Anyway, whatever. Doesn't matter. All the while, the debt was growing, and Dick resorted to writing bad checks and even petty crime and gambling to try to pay the bills. In late 1957, he broke into a home in Olathe and stole a rifle. Now, he was caught, and in March of 1958, he was sentenced to 5 years at the Kansas State Penitentiary. So this is where he comes into contact with Perry Smith. Perry and Dick did not exactly become fast friends, but they did start to talk, and eventually they were talking all the time. It was like a slow warm-up. However, Dick initially sort of blew Perry off until the day Perry told him a story about a guy named King. This is kind of the catalyst for this whole thing.
Okay.
This story, for whatever reason, made Dick Hickok see Perry in like this whole different light. It changed him from seeing Perry as just kind of this annoying guy that would tell stories and whatever to seeing him as like, oh, we got a little bit of a badass on our hands.
Okay.
We got a badass over here, right? It was that.
Okay.
It was that kind of thing. Okay. As the story went, Perry said he met King, who was an older black man, in a boarding house in Las Vegas a few years earlier. So the pair became friends, and one day King asked Perry if he wanted to take a ride out in the desert. You want to go driving around in the desert? Perry agreed. So the two climbed in King's car and headed out. At some point, Perry said, they stopped to get out for a bit, and that is when Perry decided to beat King to death with a club. As
Why?
you do. Yeah,
There's no reason why.
Yeah.
Did he have a little bit of money, maybe?
He never mentioned a motive to Dick Hickok. He just said, here's the deal. He said he wanted to kill him just to see what it felt like.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, the story thoroughly impressed Dick. who immediately, like I said earlier, he changed his mind. Oh, well, Perry's actually a pretty cool dude. Oh, you beat old guys to death? You're my people.
Yeah, exactly. Did we just become best friends?
Exactly. Now that he knew Perry was capable of killing someone, Dick looked up to him as a cold-blooded murderer.
He never thought if it could be a fake story.
Never.
He just took it as.
Yeah.
I mean, do we know or do we ever find out if it was a true story?
We do know.
Okay. You don't have to tell me right now. Just if it's in those notes of yours.
Yeah, it's actually the next line. I buttoned this one up. I buttoned this one up pretty quick.
Okay, I asked at the right time. Cool.
You always do. You guys know. We've been doing this for years and years. You
That's
guys
true.
know. Yeah, Perry's story was bullshit. All of it was true except for the part where he killed the king.
He went for the riding desert.
Right.
Okay.
And then they just went home.
Well, I see why I churched it up. That wouldn't have been a cool prison story.
We drove out into the desert, and then what happened? We went home.
I wonder if he saw like the eagerness in his friend's eyes, It's like, oh man, this story's going pretty cool. I don't think he's anticipating me to just go home. I wonder if he just changed it on the spot.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. What if he did?
Like, I could get some street cred here. Well, no, they're not on the street. I could get some cell cred here.
That is cell cred. That's a total thing, man.
Is it?
Yeah, for sure.
I thought I just made it up.
No,
man.
Depending on what you're in there for, there's different levels of like respectability that you will get, right?
Cell cred.
If you're in there, and I hate to say this, it's horrible, but from what I've heard, if you're in there for killing a cop, you're like royalty. Quite different than if you're in there for like something involving a child,
Yeah.
They'll kill you then. But like, there's different levels of that in prison.
Sure, yeah.
I know because I've been there. Not really. I've never been to prison, but I think I know because I've read some stuff.
Yeah.
About it.
Well, it's commonsensical. That makes sense there.
Yeah.
Like, we don't like cops because they put us in here. I mean, okay, we've seen Batman. We know that all the people Batman puts away, they don't like.
Right.
They go to Arkham and they plan their... Yeah, we know your story, cons. We got you.
Yeah.
We've seen your stuff.
So King was alive and well, right?
Sure.
He had not been beaten to death, but Dick didn't know that. As far as he was concerned, Perry was a ruthless killer.
Yeah, because he said it.
Because he said it. Dick believed everything he heard, and that's the whole reason the Clutters got murdered. We're getting to that. He believed everything he heard.
Wow.
Have some respectability, have some integrity, have some personal reflection. What do you call it? Like, where you just don't believe everything you hear?
Well, I guess I could find a newspaper article that said that a guy was killed and it was never solved, right?
Exactly.
Oh, no, it wasn't reported on,
Yeah.
McFly.
Yeah. There you go. Dick had also been stewing over committing the perfect score, okay? So he'd thought about this before. He needed a partner. He didn't know where it was yet, but he had this fantasy about just like knocking over a bank or, robbing a safe somewhere that would give them enough money that they could run down to Mexico and live the rest of their life.
Yeah.
So when he found Perry, he was like, oh my God, this is my guy. This is the guy now that we can do the perfect score with.
Yeah.
So a little more than a year after they met, Perry was released from prison in July of 1959. So as part of his parole conditions, he was required to leave the state of Kansas immediately, which he did. He basically resumed his nomadic life across the U.S., so it was no big thing to him. He just was a drifter.
The other states are like, thank you. It's like, we'll let you out, but you got to get out of Kansas.
Yeah. Yeah, Montana's like, damn.
Yeah.
Why?
We're not so united, these United States. We let our prisoners out, and they just go to pillage in other states.
You have to go to Nebraska.
What if they could the terms of your release is you have to go to Texas. And you have to stay there.
Everybody?
Well, it's just like they pick a state they don't like or whatever.
Yeah. Who do we really hate? Oklahoma.
If you get caught out of that state, we'll arrest you again.
You have to be inside that state.
Yeah, exactly.
That was like the thing with Ken McElroy as part of like when he was actually almost facing punishment for one of his crimes. He couldn't leave Nottoway County.
Oh, okay.
And we were like, wait a minute. Everyone there was probably like, what? No.
Yeah, I
that's
remember
the
that
opposite.
Now. Yeah.
Why don't you make the conditions where he can't enter Nottoway County?
You have to stay close to these people that you've been, yeah, Yeah,
you
that
have
is
to
kinda
remain
crazy.
in the midst of the people you've been torturing.
I guess they're just doing other stuff, so they just want to make sure they can find them if they want to pick them up again. I don't even know. I can't remember that part. But
I guess.
I do
yeah.
remember you saying that, though.
We thought that was weird.
It is.
Well, with Perry gone, Dick gravitated towards a new best buddy, and this guy's name was Floyd Wells.
Okay.
The man who would eventually provide the fateful link between Dick, Perry, and the Clutter family.
Uh-oh.
So this is how. Floyd had spent time out near Garden City a little while earlier, and he had worked for a wealthy farmer out there named, everybody together now, Herb Clutter.
I forgot already, but
That's
I knew the guy could picture the YouTube video.
There'll be a quiz at the end of this, Ivan.
Yeah, exactly.
As Floyd spoke, Dick learned more and more details about the Clutter family. Finally, one day, Floyd told a story that would seal the Clutter family's fate. He told Dick that while he'd been working for Herb, he'd went with him to lumber yards and some part stores one day and had personally witnessed Herb pay multiple thousands of dollars in cash out in materials. This is why they were building their house in 1948. He went on to say that he even knew there was a safe in the Clutter family home, a safe that always held at least $10,000. By the way, I always do this. 10 grand in 1959 would be like $111,000 today. So not enough to like live out the rest of your life. Obviously, that's not, you need to get like $1 million or $2 at least to do that.
But it sounds like for a squad of 2, that's a good first score, and then they go on to their next one, and then we get
$55K a piece, man.
Yeah.
This is a detail that ultimately wouldn't matter because it was a lie.
Okay.
Floyd Wells told most of the story may have been true, except the fact that Herb Clutter usually paid by check and never kept money at his house. He kept it in the bank. So Floyd Wells had embellished the story just like Perry. He made that up about the safe being in Herb Clutter's office. He made it up.
All his plans that he's making in prison are based on lies.
Based on BS, pure BS. Yeah. All of it, man. All of it, yeah.
Yeah, I'm laughing. I mean, it's sad what's going to happen or what did happen.
But I see the
but
humor.
it's just funny in a morbid type of way.
Yeah.
Oh, man. And it's sad, too.
Yep.
Wow.
Oh, we'll get real sad here in a little bit.
Yeah, I know we will.
We'll try to bulldoze our way through that real quick. Nevertheless, Dick decided he just found his perfect score, and he became obsessed with the Clutters. It's all he would talk about. He would always tell everybody in prison, which was freaking stupid, you idiot. But he was like, I'm going to rob the Clutters when I get out of here. I'm going straight to rob them. There's $10,000 in that safe, and it's going to be mine.
That's why he believes all that, because he's stupid.
Finally, in August of 1959, he was paroled from prison. He returned to his partner's home near Olathe and found a job at Bob Sands Body Shop. For the next couple of months, Dick obeyed the conditions of his parole and followed the law. However, at some point in October, he decided to move forward with his plan to rob the Clutter family. He wrote a letter to Perry Smith, who is living in Buell, Idaho, explaining his plan and asking if he would want in. Perry, for reasons he would later say he didn't even really know why, agreed. And the pair began plotting what would become one of the worst crimes in Kansas state history.
Wow.
Saturday, November 14th, was just like most days for the Clutters. Herb had to tackle the long list of chores his farm required on the daily. Bonnie was also up and in the kitchen making breakfast. She was tired but enthusiastic. The Clutter family had several major events coming up. Thanksgiving in a little more than a week, a large family reunion that Bonnie was in charge of, then Christmas following that, and finally the wedding of their second eldest daughter, Beverly. Soon, Nancy and Kenyon were up and Herb was back from the fields long enough to have some breakfast. Now, while the Clutters were going about their day, the men who would soon take their lives were about to enact their plan. Perry had arrived in Olathe, Kansas a few days earlier and booked a room at a cheap motel where he waited for Dick to arrive. Dick was at his parents' house preparing for the score. He placed a shotgun, hunting knife, and some leather gloves in the trunk of his '55 Chevy. I think he also put like a hunting vest that had shotgun shells like in it. You've seen those that have the...
Yeah, It's
whatever they're
across
called.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
Well, he told his parents he was going to pick up a friend and head to Fort Scott, which is 80 miles south of Olathe, and said they wouldn't be back till the following day. They were going down there supposedly to see Perry's sister. That was the ruse.
Okay.
After that, they drove to Bob Sand's body shop to give the car a tune-up and put on better tires before making that nearly 400-mile drive to Holcomb. During the drive, the pair stopped at a hardware store in Emporia to buy rope. Then again, a few hours later in Great Bend for a bite to eat. Holy cow, they stopped in the freaking town where I used to live.
Wow.
I mean, it's a small world after all, isn't it?
Yeah.
They literally stopped in Great Bend for a burger on their way to this deal, man. I mean, how crazy is that? Maybe some people don't care about details like that, but I'm like, holy crike, I used to live there.
Cue the Mickey Mouse Small World song.
We should. It's just crazy.
It is crazy.
So, okay, they stop in Great Bend to get a bite. All right, Joey, we established that. Then they drove overnight and arrived at the Clutter farm around 1 a.m. the following morning, which was Sunday, November 15th, 1959. So as they turn on this long driveway, Dick kills the headlights of the Chevy, and they park near the end of the drive. So it's still dark, obviously. It's like 1 a.m. But there was enough moonlight to see the outer details of the Clutter home. Dick and Perry sat watching the house for a good while before finally grabbing their weapons from the trunk and walking towards the house. Nobody locked their doors back then, especially in rural Kansas, so the pair, they just walked in the door, right? As luck would have it, they opened the door that led directly into Herb's office.
Okay.
I can just see Dick turn around being like, oh, it's the office. Out of this big-ass house, we went directly into the freaking office. This is a sign.
Because that's where they heard the safe was.
Yeah, it's freaking amazing, dude.
Yeah.
Now, I do got to say, I believe, this is obvious, but if there had been a safe in that office with a bunch of cash, I firmly believe that the Clutters would not have been harmed. I think they would have jacked the safe, got the cash, and been like, sweet, and then fled, you know?
Yeah.
Well, it was the 50s, so they would have been like, gee willikers, and then fled. And everything would have been fine.
Yeah.
But there was no safe.
Yeah.
However, after several minutes of frantic searching, the pair realized there was no safe in the room. We've been lied to. Frustrated, they crept through the house until they located Herb and Bonnie's bedroom. They woke them up at gun and knife point. Also woke up Nancy and Kenyon. Dick yelled at the frightened family, demanding to know where the safe was located. Herb insisted there was no safe, but of course Dick and Perry were having none of it. Mainly, from what I read, mainly Dick. I think Perry was just kind of there at the beginning. Dick was the one kind of in charge that was demanding and pointing the gun, all this stuff. After locking Bonnie and the kids in the bathroom, the men took Herb to his office and demanded to reveal the safe. He was not able to. He kept saying, guys, I don't have a safe in the house. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
I don't keep my money here. It's in the bank. I don't care how angry you get. That's just the reality. So Perry and Dick ransacked the rest of the house in search of the safe. Finally, reality dawned on them that there just was no safe. All right, Floyd Wells had lied to them. So imagine their position, like they're standing in a house that they just drove like 8 hours to, holding this family at gunpoint, and they just realized the entire thing, his whole plan, is just BS. Like there's no score. Furious by this point, the men returned to the family, tied each of them up, and taped their mouths, or maybe gagged them. I don't know if they had tape. I want to take that back. I want to be accurate here. Then Herb and Kenyon were taken to the basement. Herb was tied to the furnace, and Kenyon was tied to a couch, like in a separate room. Following this, Bonnie and Nancy were both secured in their bedrooms upstairs. Nancy was tied up in her room. Bonnie was tied up in her room. Once the family was secure, the men began to argue about what to do next. So they literally were just like, I tried to put myself there when I was writing this. Like, what do we do now? There's no money. We have the family tied up in various rooms around the house. What now? Do we just leave? They've seen our faces. What do we do? Throughout the entire planning process, Dick had been adamant about leaving no witnesses. That's what he kept saying. Like, if anyone sees our face, they got to go, right? It was his whole mantra.
Hey, have they heard of masks?
They didn't have masks in 1959. Oh, they did, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
Perry reminded him of this and shoved the shotgun into his hand. So there was an argument. Perry was like, you said they were going to, we weren't going to leave any witnesses. Take care of it. This is kind of from both of their testimonies later, by the way. However, Dick was unsure if he could follow through. So right here, all this frustration, the reality of this score just being a total flop, this all just kind of dawned on Perry, and that rage that he had, that would just stir up and he would become this monster type guy. That happened. He raged. Perry, it all exploded at once. He grabbed a hunting knife, walked over to Herb Clutter, grabbed his hair, jerked his head up, and slit his throat.
Wow.
He then snatched the shotgun out of Dick's hands and walked over to Herb. Later on, you can hear in Dick Hickok's own words that what happened next, man, it's pretty gruesome, but Perry was pretty much insistent that Dick also participate. So he handed him the knife. And man, at this time, Herb is still alive. You can hear Dick in his confession, his audio confession later. He said, he was over there gurgling and I was freaking out. He didn't use that exact verbiage, but, he said he was gurgling and I was like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? So Perry handed him the knife and said, you finish. And so supposedly Dick kind of walked over there and just it really does sound like Dick really didn't have it in him to kill anybody. We'll get into it later. I don't think he did kill anyone that day, but he kind of just like superficially kind of poked a little, And so Herb, hope to God this was only a few seconds, because the guy's suffering. He's still alive. So Perry snatches the shotgun up and goes over and shoots Herb. Puts him out of his misery. Perry then walked directly into the room where Kenyon was secured to the couch, and he shot him as well. Then the pair walked upstairs and killed Bonnie and Nancy, although who exactly killed them would become a matter of debate that we'll get into on the next episode, as well as the conclusion of this case. So that is all for part 1 of the Clutter family murders.
Wow. All because of a stupid lie.
All because of
stupidest lie.
Yeah.
Why go out of your way to say that?
Yeah.
Oh, I saw him flashing money. I mean, I don't know.
Why would that give you any more credit, right? To be like, who knows? But sometimes, if you're just a pathological liar, stuff comes out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Maybe that's all.
Yeah, I know. I'm sitting here. Why would he lie like some guy in prison? Obviously, he's probably lied his whole life.
That just made the story a little better. Man, he had a safe with $10,000 in there.
Yeah.
All the time. Just loads of cash.
But even when you said earlier, I was like, well, yeah, some people don't trust banks, so plausible. But so I leaned into his lie too.
I would have too. I mean, like you said at the time, it was post Great Depression and stuff. People buried thousands of dollars in jars around their yard and stuff. It was a thing back then.
But I thought you were going to say they got out and they like cased it and they maybe tried to verify. Actually, no, maybe I didn't think that. But I don't want to say, here's that way you should have done it. But
yeah.
You could have verified any of that probably somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know how, but you could have.
Yeah, I don't know either. In those days, how could you have? I mean, I don't know.
But you're right. It is sad. They could have just gotten that safe and left if it would have been there.
Yeah. And Herb would have been like, oh no, he would have lost 10 grand, but that's better than, you and your entire family dying, so.
There have been cases like this where you have one guy stay at the house with the family and then the next morning, Monday morning, you take him down to the bank. He needs to go in and get the cash. I don't know. It wouldn't have worked, but at least innocent people wouldn't have been slain necessarily.
Yeah.
Actually, no, they wouldn't have to at all. I mean, they don't ever have to be. But you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah, even through the eyes of the criminals.
Sure.
It just makes no sense. But yeah, that's it for part 1. And part 2, we'll get into kind of the frantic run that they do after these murders. They go all over the country. They even go down into Mexico.
Oh.
And then we'll kind of detail the investigation. And we'll wrap it up. They caught them within a month and a half and eventually executed them. And we'll get into all that on the next episode.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. And stay tuned for part 2. We'll wrap this thing up. Good night.